meeting or something, then they'll be like, there's a church, you know, gospel church, and like all these great people are playing there, and then there's concerts all day and little jams. They have a drum circle at night, or
that's awesome.
Guitar jam at night. Yeah, it's great. And it's also, you get to see all your friends from around the world in one kind of spot.
In one place to
and no one's like nervous because they're at a show and have to leave the next day and they're on tour.
They got to save their voice or something. I can't sing right now.
No, voice is gone in like 24 hours. I just got mine back. So
because you're just yelling over noise.
It's like Guitar Center on steroids during a bad trip.
Say no more. You just made me not want to go. I wanted to go until that moment.
I would say that you really have to love music to go.
That 12-year-old will not stop playing that guitar.
It's nonstop noise.
Now,
everywhere.
it used to be Stairway to Heaven that everyone played. Yeah. Has it changed in this generation?
Like, what is definitely just way more, let's see, it depends how many strings you have. So if you get those 8-section guitars, a lot of sweeping going on, you know, a lot of that.
Right.
If you're in the bass section, it's like slappy to dap all day, like these poor guys, you know, just slapping all day.
I just picture Nothing Else Matters by Metallica because you don't have to close anything.
No, I think a lot of people are just, they're semi-pro or very serious about it. It's very rare to get someone who's just a complete amateur to go.
Right. Okay.
Because it's overwhelming. Yeah. I mean, it's football fields of stuff. It's not you're going to Guitar Center to check stuff out. It's like if you want to go see Gibson guitars and then you want to see, I don't know, like Spectre basses, you're going to walk for an hour.
Wow.
To get from point A to point B.
I didn't realize it was that big.
It's huge.
You know? I've always just seen pictures.
It's huge.
And your friends, like, you know, selfies of whatever.
What, Chris Enriquez?
Yeah.
Chris Enriquez.
Chris Enriquez and everyone.
Dave Unger, yeah.
But not me.
Everyone got to meet Chris Enriquez.
Not me.
Shout out to him.
Shout out to Chris Enriquez.
Hi, Chris.
Speaking of which, what's interesting about you is that from the beginning of this podcast, we started maybe a year and a half ago, almost immediately, people like, you know who you should interview?
Yes, and the timing.
Jessica
I remember
Pimentel,
he brought it up. It's just the timing is never right. Like today was the day.
But Chris, Gavin, Van Vlack, like Dave Castillo, like a few people like, you know who you should talk to? You know, and then so it took a while.
It took a while, but we are.
Yeah, and here we are.
In Brooklyn Nights.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely just
finally moved it together. Yeah.
Shout out to my friend Nick for hosting this get together
in a lovely apartment.
In a lovely
Bay Ridge
apartment.
I seldom love.
Glorious.
So what we want to do with you is what we often do with our guests, which is, of course, we'll talk about your acting, Orange is the New Black. We'll talk about your bands, Alekeen's Gun, and Sam, Brujeria.
Brujeria.
Yeah, because I can't pronounce it, so that's
he's like, I was like, it's Brujeria.
Like when that comes up, you say it. I want to talk about
Black Heart Sutra is another one.
Right. And I want to talk about also the workshop you're going to do, your interest in Tibetan Buddhism. But what I want to start with, you have prominently on your Instagram account, New York Hardcore.
That's
right. So I'd love to know how you first found it and when, where, and how.
High school. I guess I went to Performing Arts LaGuardia, and the kids were in, we had the older kids that were into it. And finally, we were old enough to go to, well, they're all ages shows, but my mother finally let me go around like 14 or whatever. Or maybe the first show was like 13, turning 14 or something like that. But it was, I got to know hardcore through kids who had older brothers and sisters who were trying to pass those things on. But I remember my first show was at Wetlands. My mom walked me there, and she was like, I don't like the name of this club, Wetland. Does that but she saw there were other parents there taking their kids there, because we were fairly young for that. But it was an early show, or it wasn't very late. It wasn't like 10 o'clock or something like that.
Yeah, it was always afternoon
show or something like that. And
do you remember who played that show?
I think this band 13 Stitches, and then I actually did end up breaking my friend's head open by accident in the pit, which was ironic. He only got 9 or something.
Oh, he only got 9. He didn't get the 13.
He only got the 13. But it was just some small local bands, But I did see Yuppie Side quite often. Was one of my favorite bands to see.
Yep.
Come on, Madball Marauder. I can't go through the whole list.
Sure.
But the stand up, the staples, so to speak: Sheer Terror, Warzone, Bad Brains.
Warzone, Wetlands is one of my favorite places because it was just like, and they would have like 3 bands. It'd be like, 7, 8, and 9, or 6, 7, and 8, and it was like perfect. They had that downstairs. They had the one time they had the Snapple iced teas and the French fries. It was a great place.
Yeah, it was magic, especially when you're a young kid. It's like you're not really in a club, but you're not home. So it was definitely pretty cool. So.
Did it like overtake your, like, I don't know what else you were listening to, but like, was it just overpowering? You're 13, 14, and you were listening to, I don't know what was going on, but then you hear hardcore, and did it just overtake everything else?
I heard metal first. I heard
me too.
Yeah, metal was definitely first. I came from a classical musician background, so I dedicated most of my childhood to studying music, and it was pretty intense for me because I had myself in that path that I was going to be a professional classical violinist. So
which is like a lot of that, like early metal is either blues based or very like classical based.
I agree
completely.
For sure. And but think about, as you're getting older, that teen angst starts setting in. That teen angst starts setting in. You change mentally. Something kicks in you, whether it's your awakening or your loss of innocence, or actual just a physical reaction to your hormones changing, hormonal imbalance or something like that happens to you. And suddenly things that were like okay are not okay, and now you're like restless, and now you're seeking something. And I heard, I remember hearing kind of King Diamond. Was the first kind of metal thing I ever heard, and scared the crap out of me. I was 12 years old. I was like,
classical.
But this is so amazing. But it was so classically based that it wasn't so far of a stretch for me.
Super theatric stuff.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Super theatrical, super beautiful, super operatic. That whole story in an album, I thought that was just genius, brilliant. That I could be afraid because of music, I thought was incredible. But funny. That started me on that road too.
And how you got into like acting too, because it's such a theatrical record. Or the song that you mentioned. So it's like a combination of the both. Like you have the music and like, the acting as well. Like, because King Diamond, like those lyrics and like the imagery, even before like Merciful Fate was like something else, but like King Diamond, like he like upped like those characters, like you're listening to this like movie almost.
Absolutely. That was the epitome. But I remember just having this angst, and then I hear King Diamond, and it was kind of closer. Now I'm hearing my music something like my music, but now it's distorted and it's loud and these guitars are crazy and it's making me feel something that I had never felt before. Then I got into Metallica, and that was like the kicker, you know?
Yeah.
Really just powerful, in your face, palm muting, chugging, these lyrics are like bigger than life as well. And that felt really great. And then hardcore came. And that's when I felt like, wow, these are people I know. This is my life. Whereas Metallica, King Diamond, all that, the other metal-y stuff is more fantasy, larger than life, a fantasy version of you that, like you and the robot version of you.
Right.
Hardcore is you. Hardcore is the street, your everyday that you're seeing around you, the way your friends live, the way you live. You know, it was something that was absolutely accessible, but still had this street grit to it.
Danger.
That dangerous element to it, a street grit to it, and authenticity to it. And it wasn't about showing off. It wasn't about playing perfectly. It wasn't about, I don't know, being as poetic as possible. Just being as honest as possible, being as real as possible, and reflecting day-to-day life, which never happens pretty much in most music. You get hip-hop and hardcore.
Yeah.
And the singer walking by you to get to the stage.
Oh, that was always fun. And I thought that was another aspect of it that I loved, that you could thank the person that played for you as they're on stage or sharing the mic. You know, we all if you remember Rabies, you know, this is my mic, this is your mic, you know, things like that. That's what started me singing and getting into playing different instruments, different style of music, and feeling at home there.
Yeah, there's nothing that compares to walking in and seeing 50 kids pile on the singer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you just...
live for it.
It's crazy, you know, and even if you saw it on a video and even if you saw it in, you know, someone's music video.
Oh, yeah.
When you walked in and saw that, the adrenaline, it's crazy. And you just like, you know, it's even like hearing the first song that scares you, like King Diamond or whatever. It's weird how some people get scared off forever, like this isn't music. And other people are like, wait a minute. What the fuck was that? Like a horror flick. Like I want more.
I would say that saved my life. It was a release. When I felt all this pressure to be a certain way or to be excellent constantly, or things weren't going my way, or you know you're not happy at home, or you're feeling depressed. There's no better release than just getting in a room with all your friends and screaming at the top of your lungs.
Yeah.
You know, it's not necessarily all that it's letting out all my sadness or whatever. Sometimes it's just letting out pure joy.
Sure.
So much happiness, so many good times. And that's what kept me kind of going times when you were sad. Because I was always like a sad kind of kid, or really put a lot of pressure on myself. So that was a release. That's when you were like your freest, you know, jumping off a stage into a crowd of strangers screaming. It was great.
And I wonder too, the school that you went to, and that was like what the movie Fame was based on, apparently, or the show or whatever. That's got to demand a lot of perfection, and hardcore and that world is sort of, I would say, it seems like the opposite of that. Did that help balance it out, or? I
guess. I mean, you had your crew, your people that you could. That were outside of school that didn't know about if you messed up in this thing this day in this performance area. Or what happened with me is I couldn't play anymore. I started losing feeling in my hands.
Really?
So all of a sudden the plan that I had my whole life, now at the age of 15, is not an option now.
Why did you lose feeling?
Yeah.
I was playing 8 hours a day at times.
Like Whiplash?
Yeah, like Whiplash. Like Tom's neck, like Tom Araya's neck.
Yeah. Oh, no, I was talking about the movie.
Oh, like Whiplash, the movie.
Yeah,
no.
like the drummer.
Oh, that kid, the crazy drummer. Yeah, no.
But shout out to Tom Araya, though.
Tom Araya, he's a good guy. It's also karma. It could be technique. It could be just your physical body couldn't take this action repetitively for that way, where someone could do the exact same thing as you. Someone could do the exact same thing as you, the same amount of time or more, and nothing can happen to them. We're each different.
Yeah.
So that was just what happened to me. I would wake up, my hands would be numb. I'd be playing, and after like 10, 15 minutes, I'd have to shake it out. And there got to a point where even now, I basically have very little feeling in my hands.
Wow.
So I had to, that door got closed. I better open a window.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I started playing guitar and bass then because I found that it hurt less. I had more room to work with, and the sound wasn't coming so much from me, whereas violin really comes from you. You control the vibrato, the depth of the tone much more than you would in an electric instrument where you have pedals and volume and other things to kind of mask if you can't feel anything. If you can't
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
so then you told
Tony Iommi.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Got R.I.P. those fingers.
Yeah.
R.I.P. fingers.
So like your I guess like family was like supportive and stuff like that. So you switched to guitar or bass, right?
Well, that was going to be a thing on the side that my mom finally gave into because I just like complained enough that I wanted a guitar, you know, and all my friends had guitars and nobody was jamming violin after school. Everybody was playing Metallica after school. You know, everybody was doing hardcore bands after school. Nobody was playing like chamber music bands after school.
No, yeah. Were you playing along to records then?
Yeah, Fade to Black was the first song I learned how to play, you know, playing along with records, getting those big books, you know, the tab books. Sure. And just jamming with friends, learning from each other, and that's how I learned how to play. This is before all these gizmos and gadgets that we have on our phones now. It's amazing.
Well, yeah, YouTube is like helpful. Like whenever I want to learn a song, I'm just like,
so
fuck
easy,
it.
Right?
I just go.
Songster is my jam.
I haven't tried that, but
good.
like before it was like Guitar World, and I would see 240.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay,
that's good. That still works.
Absolutely, but like I like the YouTube now. Now I'm spoiled at 40.
Now you're just looking at it. Yeah, I hear you. But now you can get any song that you want, like.
Yes,
it's fantastic, but it's also
in your
spoiled.
phone.
It's like hideous and wonderful.
Yeah, see, then I'm like, these kids should be perfect at everything.
Yeah,
because they have all the
access
information,
to everything.
Or the joy of like just finding that record in the weird record store.
Oh my God, we used to have to hunt for records or order things or or there's only one of them in the world and you got to track it down or things.
Like it's good for the band that anybody can get it, but like for our own like. Sort of, like that adventure of finding it, it's gone.
The adventure of should I buy the vinyl before or after the show, and where am I going to keep it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Or that crazy import that's 3 times the price that it should be.
At Kim's Video.
Yeah. So it has an extra song.
I would go to
Bob's.
I would go to Kim's Video and I would start at A, and I would be there for like anyone who went with me would know I would be there for like 2 hours.
I believe.
I would start at A and I would just keep doing this and like looking at everything till I got to Z, and I'm like, okay.
Oh, that's good. That's a day well spent.
Yes.
Yep. Or you just look for the crazy picture.
Nah,
or you look at the thank you list. You're like, oh, they thanked Agnostic Front. I guess I'll buy them.
I'll buy it. Check it out.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like that name.
I agree.
So what was the first foray into playing in a band?
I would say just jamming along with friends, and we would, write songs and try to be in a band together. I mean, no real shows out, but real first, I guess, band that I would say I was in was Step Too Far, New York hardcore band Step Too Far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that I consider them my first band. But then from then on, hardcore is a small world. So you're just like in this band
it's
for a week, and then they got to borrow a bass player. I'm like, I got to learn bass by Friday. Things like that.
What were the other ones? Everybody Gets Hurt.
I was in Everybody Gets Hurt as well. And it's funny because they had asked me to be part of that band years ago, and I'd just gone into school, and my teachers could hear when I had been singing over the weekend. Yeah, they say you have to stop or you will be kicked out. And that's it. And so I had to make that choice. So I made that choice, but then years later I ended up there anyway. Yeah, so, it was great experience.
I remember reading or hearing about a story about you meeting Peter Steele. Yeah. And just before we get too far along in your origin stories, what was that story?
Origin stories.
Yeah, we're getting into the bands, but this is how you found hardcore.
We're getting like
just because we keep hearing awesome stories about Peter Steele, right, Sam?
Peter Steele was awesome.
We keep hearing awesome stories.
Yesterday we got good one too.
There's been a few on this podcast where people talk about how good of a guy he was.
Well, close your ears, Mom. No, it's not that bad. A lot of time, I was a kid that I was always kind of ahead in school. And then I found myself in a school that wasn't so much pushing certain academics. It was more focused on your artistic endeavors. Yeah. Some academic classes were fantastic. Some were not so fantastic. So the ones that were not so fantastic, I would not go to. And I would just chill by my house at the Promenade in Brooklyn, where Peter Steele was the groundskeeper, the Green Man. And I remember one day being there, being an angsty teen, listening to, I forgot, King Diamond, Metallica, some Slayer, something, weird. Nothing crazy. Maybe I was listening to some hardcore band. And I just see this guy's like, hey, shouldn't you be at school? And I was like, I don't need to be anywhere. And I just look up, and I look up and up and up and up
and up
and up. And I see this guy in this green jumpsuit and the long black hair. And he's like, wait, you're supposed to be in school, kid. You can't be hanging out here. And I'm like, oh, I go to class, whatever. He's like, what you listening to? And I told him whatever. It's like, oh, that's pretty good. You ever hear of Carnivore?
And he had a green jumpsuit on.
And he had a green
Really?
jumpsuit on.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Parks Department.
Yeah.
So he had
And
a
it's
green
green.
jumpsuit. So he's
That's
the
his
green
thing.
man.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting.
So then from that point on, he became kind of like a big brother figure.
Jeez, that's
but
great.
not in the corrupting kind of like, let me take you out, kid,
Yeah.
and corrupt you, and here's a beer or something like that. It was just like seeing if I was sad, like, what's up, Jess? Why are you looking sad today? And I would tell him my problems. He'd listen. And he'd have, mixes for me, like, hey, check out this band, check out Cro-Mags, check out,
Awesome.
And just gave me stuff and, like, keep your chin up, keep your head up, and get to school before I get in trouble. And that's
what we keep hearing, these great stories about him.
Story.
Not knowing him personally, that's not the story you would expect, right?
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's just interesting.
Well, sweetheart.
Turns out he was
Don't close your ears, Mom. That was good.
No, that was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's what it is too. Like when you find someone that's into that music, it's just so, I don't know, like you're automatically, like I'm wearing a Misfit shirt, and I'm sure somebody would be like, oh,
yeah,
Misfits.
that's something about hardcore metal culture, that when you see someone wearing a shirt that you like, it's like, good shirt. You always say it.
Or you're like head nod. Like, I see an Iron Maiden shirt. I'm like,
I think you're cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's cool. And then to give out mixtapes too, because that's probably when it was, right?
Yeah, just like, here,
time.
check this out.
It takes time, to make that mixtape.
Yeah, well, I mean, just things that he thought I had never heard of or whatever. It was like burn those CDs, and it's just blanks, and I have these blank CDs. I have no idea what's on them, and every once in a while you put one in, and you're like, that's it. That's how I got into that band.
Yeah,
that's it.
And it's a good story. Like my story of getting hardcore was like my scrubby friend Derek gave me like a Suicidal Tendencies tape, and like when I hear someone's like, oh, no, I was on the Lower East Side, I bumped into Vinny Stigma, like your story. It's like, I was just hanging out in the park and Peter Steele walks up. I'm like, man,
right?
that wins. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
like if we were remade Can't Hardly Wait, that would be
but the thing is, I didn't know who he was. It's not like I'm like, oh my God, that's Peter Steele. I'm like, here's some dude that's gonna rat on me, and I'm gonna have to go to school, and where in all intents and purposes, it was someone like that ended up changing my life, and that still to this day I still listen to that music with a heavy heart sometimes. Because it was so beautiful. It was something else. It really was.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone gets it
too. Like it still was great. Even the last couple records they put out, their biggest records were one thing, but he just kept making beautiful music. Beautiful music,
yeah. I mean, never mind the aggressive, thrashy stuff, to begin with, which was also very, influential. It influenced so many of us. But that beautiful stuff later on was something that hit in a very personal place. It was like that fine line between that gothy mopey you and the angry kind of New York street kid in you, kind of mixed both.
Yeah, you're right.
So perfectly.
Yeah, like a heavier Cure.
With an accent.
Yeah, with an accent. Yeah, I remember seeing like Typo with Danzig like years ago, man, and like definitely that was like the first time, and I was like, well, this is so good.
Yeah,
like holy shit.
Mm-hmm. And that. Him coming from Carnivore too, that's not easy to pull off. That takes because it wasn't inauthentic, and that's why it worked.
And that's why it worked. Absolutely, because
if you tried to be sensitive,
hardcore kids love to make fun of each other, especially when you're doing something different. Always like to, it's always like that ribbon, a little, chop busting. So
try being a hardcore kid from Long Island. It's even worse than you think.
I'm sorry.
It's even worse than that.
I'm sorry.
So, what was your first band that you were in that started to do stuff?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess Everybody Gets Hurt was the first band that I think was the most doing stuff. Did that even make sense? Everybody Gets Hurt. It's the first band I left the continent with, which was amazing.
That's awesome.
We did a tour in Japan, which was really eye-opening to see how You know, when people say I'm big in Japan, I'm huge in Japan, that is not a lie.
Yeah, that's true.
It was really overwhelming at times. You know, you had fans like ripping your clothes up, like ripping at you and pulling your hair out and breaking down walls to try to see you, and just everyone knew who you were when you were there. It was pretty intense, and plus it was just a family, you know, a big family thing, and getting to write on records, even if I wasn't singing on it, writing with Rob lyrics or doing backups, even if I wasn't a main singer anymore. He and I doing solos, like, hey, I got an idea, let's just do this song for me and you, or something like that. It was a chance to just be as creative as we wanted to be,
right? And
that was really nice, even at a point where I wasn't going to be in bands anymore. So,
and that was when you were deciding to pursue acting?
That's when I was in the conservatory doing that, getting a degree in theater, and just trying to focus on that, and just, you know, I was always taught, like, if you focus on too many things, you'll never be good at anything. So that's kind of how I grew up. So I was like, I gotta really just focus on this for now.
Right.
But then, you know, opportunities would come up. Someone would be sick. You grab a mic. Oh, you're gonna go to Maryland anyway with the band, even if you're not in the band, or.
And what year is this?
At that point, it was like the early thousands.
Okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So they put out their last album. I'm trying to think when the last album came out. But I'm on that too. But I wasn't in the band at the time, but I'm still singing on it. Yeah. Awesome. Which is great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, to go to Japan, wherever, and be like popular, or for something to hit there, that's fucking great. Like,
yeah, it was huge. It was really great. And we had it's a great story. These girls, one girl showed up at the first show in Hiroshima, and she just cried the whole time, because she wasn't used to seeing a female acting like that.
Right.
You know, brown girl, curly hair, wild, jumping up and down, screaming with the boys, punching people in the faces, like the opposite of what she was taught to be. Yeah. So then she came the next show with more friends to the next city. Then they came to the next city with more friends, and at a point we had to just like rope off they call it Jishka section, because they couldn't say Jessica. They'd go Jishka, Jishka.
Oh, that's
and they would just stand there and just like shake and cry and be like, you know, like holding their breath and tears, and just overwhelmed by seeing a powerful, you know, dominant woman in a male dominated genre type music, where we used to, you know, hold the jacket type thing.
Right.
And a lot of that stuff is just influence. Like, you know, like you never know. Those girls maybe started a band.
Yeah, I hope they did.
That's
one of them started a family with my guitar player.
Oh.
So that worked out.
All right.
Get you spreading the love.
That worked out.
Domo Orogato.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be up close to see a cultural clash like that, you know, like a cultural switch, someone like getting it like in front of you. You know, you could play out of state, you could play in the South and be like, wow, it was really different at that bar, but to go to like a completely different culture, and you're talking about, you know, the way females are raised in that culture, and just to see that happen physically with someone like crying.
Stunned. They were just stunned.
Wow.
And I'm still stunned by it. It's still a very fond memory, a strange memory, but because it's a little bit, you know, it's a lot to see a group of people crying just because you exist.
Yeah.
Jessica, you're big in Japan.
I'm big in Japan.
And like your family, your family that like backs you, you know, playing the violin, and then sees you years later doing stuff like that. Like,
well, I once brought my mom to an Alakeen's gun show.
Okay.
She came for the show and was escorted out after we were done.
Cool.
And she says, you know, it's not her thing. It's not her favorite thing on earth, but she says, you know, you guys are very professional, and you sound like a demon.
Oh.
Very good. It was very good. It was very nice. It was very nice.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. My dad used to come to our shows, but not anymore. Every now and then, but that's it. Because he usually tries to get me to, like, he'll be like, yo, no joke. He'd be like, yeah, you know, you guys need, like, percussion. You know, he's like, you guys need like Latin flavor in there, and I'm just like, but we're like an indie rock band. Like, I don't know.
You don't
like,
need percussion, yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't get it. So.
The hardcore stuff my mom could deal with a little better, but then once you get to the AG that has a little more like corpse paint and the incense and all that, that's kind of like pushing it for her. And also brujeria.
Oh, brujeria.
Which, you know, they say I'm a member of. No real way to put, you know, prove that. Blabbermouth put my picture there. That doesn't mean it's me because, you know, those masks could be anybody back there.
Who knows?
The Masked Singer.
But when she sees that stuff, then that hits a little too close to home, so to speak, being from the Dominican Republic, you know?
Yeah.
So she doesn't want to, that's really not her.
Everybody has their preference.
Yes.
You know, your mom happens to like hardcore. I understand.
She likes hardcore better. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you have a real closeness with your mom through all of these things that you.
Well, I mean, my mom took me to go see Guns N' Roses when I was a kid. Yeah. You know, she understood. My mom was young. My mom got married when you were supposed to get married, 18 or 20 or something like that, you know? Okay. So she had me at 22 years old. So she was young when she had a kid. She was 30. Like, what is she supposed to do? Shrivel up and die? Like, we're 30. We could still skateboarding and, like, hanging out in high school still.
Yeah. Right.
Come on.
I could relate.
Yeah, so actually it was through my interests, like, listening to Police and Sting and stuff. So she took me to go see Sting. She took me to go see Bonnie Raitt. She took me to go see the Grateful Dead. She took me to go see Metallica. She took me to go see Guns N' Roses. Yeah, anything that I was in, because she was overprotective, which was kind of, you know, she wasn't going to let me go by myself or go with my friends. So she would take me there, and maybe I'd have a ticket for a friend as well.
Right.
And she'd sit like a row behind us or something like that.
Oh, so she would go in, she wouldn't like sit in the parking lot? She would like see the concert also?
She would come in and see the concert. Yeah, she the Guns N' Roses. She couldn't hear for days. She doesn't remember really anything about it. She said she didn't like when they flashed the boobs on the screen. And Chris Cornell was a very beautiful man. That's all she takes away from that tour.
All right, she picked up on the important stuff.
She picked up on the important things.
That was Guns N' Roses Soundgarden.
Yeah.
I remember it was like 92.
We were like children. Yeah. So then the boobs were coming out. She was like, "Oh my God, Jessica, come here! Cierra los ojos, no mira, no mira."
My barbers are Dominican. Like, my mom's Dominican, so I'm half Dominican. And it's funny because, like, I grew up with my Colombian side more. Mm-hmm. So, but when I go to my barbers, like, man, like, the slang is so different.
So different.
Different. But absolutely. I hear it, I'm like laughing because like it sounds like my grandmother talking.
Okay, that's cool.
So that I associate. I don't tell them anything. I just like I don't even like they don't even know that I speak. Yeah. But I know like I hear it. But the slang is so different.
Now, I guess there's a thing you decide that you're going to do acting. You said you're in the conservatory.
Yeah, it's kind of like the world. It wasn't even a decision. It was like the world just, pay attention to the signs. The windows just kept opening in that direction, so I just kept following that direction.
Okay.
That's pretty much it. So I'm sorry, continue.
Well, what were some of the first acting gigs that you got?
Oh, yeah, my first, acting gig was, coming out of high school, something like that, extra work, learning the ropes, so to speak, where you just... don't have any lines, you're just background, or you're dancing but you can't make noise, you just shimmy. What you see when in movies and TV, people never look like they're good dancers.
Yeah.
Because there's no music. There's no music and you can't make noise, or you can't have a conversation. Like you see everybody's always super animated because you can't talk.
Right.
But then you're doing this for hours and hours and hours and hours. And I realized that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
It was nice to be on a set, to learn the lingo, to see to see how things work. I advise every actor who wants to be in film or television to do that a few times at least.
Yeah.
So when you come into work on your leading role that you're going to get the first day you audition, that you know exactly what they're talking about as far as terminology is concerned, because you'll be surprised how many people come to work green and they don't know what they're doing and they don't come back.
They don't last.
But just also to see, without the pressure, how a set works. And
it's probably a trip.
Great learning experience.
Definitely to do it a few times.
Absolutely.
I just picture Three's Company when they were at the Regal Beagle. There would always be people talking and
drinking a beer.
Yeah. Completely animated.
Exactly. And so that you see how hard it is, because everyone thinks okay, we do the show, it's 40 minutes. It only took us 40 minutes to do it. No. A scene might take 6 hours and it only comes out to be a minute long. Or sometimes you see us swimming in a lake and it's November and we're acting like it's July. Or it's July and we're acting like it's November. Or it's not raining. They bring in a rain machine. You have bronchitis, and you have to stand out in the fake rain for 4 hours.
That sounds like it really happened.
So fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds like it definitely happened.
I mean, the lake thing also happened. We shot scenes in a lake in November. We shot a kickball scene outside in Polar Vortex February last year. We've done a lot of pretty
Do you like see the scenes and be like, that was awesome? Or you're like, we spent 6 hours on that and there's only 20 seconds of it. What the fuck?
You have your moments. Sometimes you're like, oh, I wonder why they used that shot and not that shot. Of course. Especially like, oh, that was such a good side of me. Like, why did they? No. I'm always happy. Very rarely do I go, oh, how did they cut that? I mean, that happens more to me in my experience with film.
Okay.
That you've done a film and you've done these scenes and then they're completely gone, that's mortifying. You're sitting through an entire film and you're just like waiting. You're like, oh my God, I can't wait. It's coming up in the script. And then you get there and you're like not even in it anymore. Or you had a whole scene and now it's just you walking out the door because there wasn't enough time. So that really sucks.
So, I mean, and this might sound like a stupid question, but I guess the director doesn't tell you something like that, right?
No, they don't. Right. They don't.
You don't know till
you don't know till the editor gets it, and then they might decide, this scene went long, but we like this, or this scene was not necessary, or I don't know. Yeah. We don't like you. No, I don't know what that. But that's what that happens. That's the nature of the beast. You never know what it's going to look like. So on a show like Orange, I'm watching. I always say this every year. I'm not gonna watch at 3 a.m. every year. I'm there, the animals, because I know what I shot.
Yeah.
I know this. I know the whole script. I get the whole script. I know what I shot, but I don't know what it's gonna look like. But also, I have no idea what anybody else's scenes look like. So we're only one piece of a very big puzzle. So I know what our room felt like that day. I know that if we had a good scene or a bad scene, or if we were gelling, or if it was a lot of tears or laughter. I know our dynamic of that day, of that scene. But I don't know what these two did last week. I don't know what they did yesterday. I don't know what they're doing after we're done. And I want to see it too, because everyone's kick-ass, killers. I want to see their work just as much as the audience does. It's a surprise for me too.
Wow. So these episodes, you don't know. You don't know until as you're watching it, except for what
I have the script. Yeah. Not everyone has the script too. Some people only get their scripts. Yeah.
Let's get that. Like, how did you stumble across Orange Is the New Black?
Oh, that's a story. I had been doing it, let's say 2012. They say overnight success is 10 years. So that's about right. It's about 2002. So 2002, I was grinding. I had played like umpteenth number of hookers on Law & Order. I'd done a few plays off Broadway and touring company, Romeo and Juliet. I'd done a lot of stuff, but it was like never like kind of, it was like a guest star, day player. It was never like a big break kind of thing. And it kind of breaks you down after a while. You keep getting rejected because you go on 100 things before you get one. Mm-hmm. So right now I have four scripts sitting on my kitchen table that I got to look over for Monday and Tuesday. Am I going to get them? Who knows? But what do I have to do? I have to put in the work. I have to read the scripts. I have to create a character. I got to pick an outfit that's cute, all that stuff. It's like getting ready for a date every single time, 4 times a day. Yeah. All that effort and the nerves and you also want to do well, because you never know if they're going to call you back for something else, which is kind of what happens in this industry, that someone sees you for one thing and they're like, she wasn't right for that, but there's this thing I read last week. So I'd been doing that for years, and it was, like the money was always tight, and you're doing jobs you really don't like. Tending bar, or I was a ticket broker for a while, working with Broadway shows, and just kind of like always hoping for your next gig and always hoping. And it's a really hard life, because you're not creating the work. You're waiting for people to pick you.
Right. Now, do you feel, just real quick, like maybe it would have been different if you moved to like California?
No.
No, okay.
It's still the same. It's competition is competition, and the role that is right for you will be right for you, whether you're in LA or New York. We send tapes back and forth. A lot of films that I've gotten have been from tape. I wasn't even in the room. So you don't even know anyone that's working on that show till you get there that day. Yeah. I don't think necessarily. I think maybe at the time, if I would have moved in the 2003 or something, there were many more shows out there than here, but now there's a lot of shows here.
So many.
Yeah.
And now you have Atlanta, Vancouver, you have London. I'm starting to work with people in Europe now. The world is getting smaller and smaller. So
and also just the fact that the streaming services, like before there was Channel 2, there was Channel 4, there was Channel 5,
and then you have
7.
the premiums, right?
Yeah, and the premiums, now it's like people will take a chance, like, you know, on like the first thing I remember seeing was Breaking Bad. That just blew my mind. I was just like, whoa, okay. And then Sons of Anarchy came, and then from there it just started breaking. Netflix started doing their thing. Hulu popped up, and now everyone's doing these like.
I can't afford another streaming service. Like serious, I can't. I have the what's the chiller.
What? Shudder?
Shudder. I have Shudder.
No, it's so good.
It's so good.
I love it. It's so good. Did you watch Revenge yet?
No, I haven't. I can't. I have no time to watch TV.
We'll talk.
I have an appointment with Natasha Lyonne to watch Russian Dolls tonight.
Oh God, I love her. She's so awesome.
She's awesome. She's
Slums
great.
of Beverly Hills.
Super proud of her for this show.
Detroit Rock City.
Detroit Rock. Yep, she's great.
Okay, yeah. But going back to your story.
Oh, so yeah, and I had stopped playing music, which was like the core of my soul for all these years. I'd stopped, and I wasn't playing in any bands. I wasn't doing anything musically, and it was working in an office job, and then later kind of like a bartending gig because I was sick of the office job too. Like I just done. You're an artist. You want to create art, and the bartending is just like a constant. The bartending thing wasn't helping me. As much as I thought, like, I have my days free, I have, you know, kind of liquid income. At the end of the day, if you want to do something, you have to just go for it, basically.
That sort of robs your energy.
But it absolutely does. It absolutely does.
Mm-hmm.
But
maybe
I
it
digress.
steals the structure.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But at that point, it was like 2012, which is the worst year of my life. Someone very close to me committed suicide. I had almost died from some crazy abscess in my throat that went in my lymph nodes. Almost died. We had Hurricane Sandy that year. I mean, that breakups and cheaters and all that, like every bad thing that could go wrong. That my house was leaning to the side because they had just started this huge construction project. It was just like worse and worse and worse. But I was auditioning for this show, a major show with an actress that I love, a huge actress. And a huge show for me as a series regular. So you're become a main character. And they'd called me back, and they'd called me again, and they'd called me again. And I kind of got this feeling like, oh my God, this is it. And it went from getting a scene to getting 4 scenes to getting a script. And like, this is it. I saw myself there. I saw myself in that role. I was there. I had it. And during that time, I had been being called in for another show, which my manager described as a computer show about ladies in jail. A computer show about ladies in jail. And I was like, wow, a show? It's not even on TV. So you want me to go for a webisodes? Webbies.
Right.
Does that even pay? What is it, like $50? $50 a day? What is that? Webbies, not even on TV.
What's scale for a
I'm like, is this
show?
like a friend of yours or something? And they're calling me in for these characters, right? They called me in, you know, like, but never mind. The show that I kept going for, all of a sudden I'm like so sure that I have this show, and one day I come in for my final read, I'm sure, and I look around the room and there's 30 other chicks there, like starting from scratch again. And it was absolutely obvious that they were not going my direction, but I had been there so many times, I guess, or maybe they wanted to chat, who knows. But I knew when I walked in, I felt like betrayal. And I had put so much effort into this, and I had this too much hope. I grasped to this role, which is a good lesson for me at the end of the day. That just enjoy the process and don't worry about the outcome, because I was very convinced that the outcome was going to be different. But during that time, I had been auditioning for that computer show, as my manager called it.
Well, back then, that's what
it was. A computer show.
Yeah.
That's
and
how we were all watching it on our laptops.
No one knew how else to describe it. Right, the computer show. So I'm auditioning for the computer show. I auditioned for several roles that when I knew at that point that I was jaded when I was no longer taking breakdown of a character. They give you a little kind of paragraph of what the character is about. And I was no longer taking that paragraph as a direction or a challenge. I was taking it as what they thought of me. So one of the characters was, the breakdown was, not very smart, not very pretty, kind of fat. And I was like, wow, so you call me? I'm the first person you call? Like, I was started taking all these things as insults. Very awkward, socially awkward, crazy, not likable, goofball, something like that. I was like, oh, so you want a goofball? You want a crazy, mentally disabled person? That's me? You're going to call me? So every time I was getting defensive about these, which is just there to help me.
Right.
So at that point, after I didn't get that big role and they called me in for the not very pretty, not very fat thing, or kind of fat thing, I had enough. And I'm like, I had to sit and ask myself, do I want to spend the rest of my life letting people mess with my emotions?
Yeah.
And the thing is that they're not messing with your emotions. It's you messing with your emotions, because you get attached, you get hopeful, you get...
Yeah.
But the thing is that these opportunities are so scarce that you can't help but get attached and get hopeful and get excited and hope for it, and hope for a paycheck is nice, you know? Hope to get paid to do what you love. So I remember calling my manager and saying, you know what, I need a break, at least to the end of the year. And then I'll decide, because I'd just gotten this letter from Microsoft. I said, it's never too late, Jessica. Come be a Microsoft tech. And I was like, you know what?
Microsoft.
I get a check every week. I don't have to see people in their face. I could be on the phone. I love computers. Yeah. Maybe I should do that.
Any benefits?
Yeah, I get health benefits. I get health insurance.
Paid vacation.
Wow.
Paid vacation. I mean, come on, it's looking better and better.
Yeah.
And if I want to play in a band, I'll play in my garage.
Absolutely.
Play on the weekends like everybody else. Yeah. And it's not going to be...
I'll be playing tomorrow.
Yeah. Excellent. Right. What bar is this?
Oh, yeah. The bar that we always mention on every show, Mr. Beery, is that page. Always.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect.
All right.
So I said, I called her up. First, I told my mom, that I was like, I think I'm done with this, because this whole last thing. Also, you're doing movies and people think that you're rich, and you come back like, I got 2 pairs of jeans and a phone. That's what I got out of it. Things like that. They have this whole like kind of warped idea of how much you make or what you're doing or whatever. But it wasn't like accelerated. It wasn't going anywhere. It was kind of just like this listless back and forth. Mm-hmm. No real progress. Hooker number 17. Here we go.
Right.
And the constant rejection, like I said, getting ready for these shows and getting ready for these auditions, learning your lines, finding the outfit, creating a character, just the time it takes to read the thing and get there, and the money you spend to get there. It's work just to get work. And then you get in the room and all your friends are in the room. So it's like you and everyone in your phone book is going for the same thing. Yeah. And that's also kind of hard, that competitive aspect.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah.
Competing with your friends, but
especially like later on, if one of you gets it, can be weird. I guess.
Yeah, I guess when you're young and starting out, I guess you think of it as a competition. Now it's just like, I hope one of us gets it.
Yeah.
If you get it, I'm coming to your house for dinner. You can take me out. That's it.
You.
It's on you. And then I called up my
manager.
Shutter
on you.
Yeah, shutter on you. $4.99. Give me radio. $4.99 a month. That's right. So I called up my manager and I said, hey, Lori, I just wanted to tell you, I think I need a break for the end of the year. She's like, it's so funny that you're calling me right now, because remember Jen, she loves you. She really wants you to be on her computer jail show. And I was like, oh, no, I don't. She's like, look, she's been a fan of yours for years. You've been going to her castings for 10 years. She loves you. She really thinks you're going to be a good fit in this. Just one more thing. Come on. I was like, fine. But this is my last one till January. She goes, fine. I said, what is it? Computer jail show. Unnamed. But then she says, well, Genji Cohan is attached to it. It's like, oh, okay. Why didn't you mention this earlier? That kind of changes the ratio to, this kind of changes.
Good to bad ratio.
Yeah. Well, I guess if she's doing it, it's got to be cool at least, right? I'm like, all right, give it to me. What is it? Well, she's in jail. I was like, duh. Yeah. Her name's Maria. I'm like, whew, what a stretch.
Yeah.
Maria. She goes, and then the last thing they said is she's very pregnant. And I said, is her boyfriend a drug dealer? And her reply was, "We don't know that yet." Because I had played that so many times. Like pregnant, in jail, drug dealer, hooker, drug dealer's girlfriend. It's like the same thing that I was like, my eyes, I'm surprised they didn't get stuck in my head, rolling my eyes around. So, you know. And she goes, "Okay, so it's tomorrow at 12:30. And I said, "No, I have to go to Sephora tomorrow because it's my birthday makeover day. And I'm not going to miss my birthday makeover. So can we make it 12?
Make it earlier.
So that's how little. It wasn't like, oh, I'm getting this opportunity, sure, whenever they want me there. It was like, no. You know what's more important? Lipstick.
Yeah.
That's what's more important right now to me.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, so just out of curiosity, that was like the first show that Netflix put out, right?
There was House of Cards before that.
Really?
That was the show. But I went in not wanting to be there. Mm-hmm. She showed up at 12:20, so I was not happy because she still had 12:30, I guess, or traffic, whatever. Yeah. Big deal, no big deal. But that attitude came out, and it was like, you know, okay, what's your name? Jessica. What are you reading? Maria. You know, and that's just exactly how I felt.
Yeah.
And she's like, "That's so good. That was so great." I'm like, "You always say that," and I just walked out of the room. And the next day, I got a phone call, and I started that week.
Wow. So the way you really felt was the kind of what the character is.
Because I just didn't care at that point, and I lived in that kind of tough kind of world. That's how I was feeling because I missed my Sephora. Right. It sounds really silly, but it was just kind of like a throw it up kind of thing, and it landed.
Yeah.
And it landed, and like it just. Like immediately, like the show was pretty popular. Like, what was that feeling like?
We woke up to be the #1 show in the world.
How wild!
From going to sleep to waking up, it was wild. Because it had been released, time zone by time zone.
Yeah.
So every time zone was telling the next time zone, like, are you watching this? Are you watching this? Oh my God, it's so good. So by the time it was dinner time the next day, people had already watched the entire series. Plus, that's another thing. I think although it had kind of existed before with, torrent download stuff, this was really the time when people started learning how to binge watch.
How to binge, yeah. My girlfriend binged that first season with quickness.
Yep. Like, it's to the point now where people, there's a show out and people will say, oh, well, let's wait a couple more weeks. So at least we can watch 4 in a row.
Yeah. I'll be like bummed. I'm like, we got to wait a whole week.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at it with True Detective. I'm like,
okay.
God damn. Gotta wait a week
Gotta wait a week.
But yeah, it's amazing. And now, like, something like Netflix, it's such a game changer. Like you could make this content, and the word of mouth, like, when something's on TV, like, maybe you'll DVR it, maybe you don't have a DVR, and you're like, oh shit, I missed it.
Maybe you watch it, maybe I'll catch it, maybe not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Every time someone signs on to Netflix, because so many people cut the cord with cable,
right?
You just scroll. Oh,
endless.
There it is. And then the word of mouth. It happens with like something like Bird Box. Like, if Bird Box got released to the theaters, maybe some people would watch it. But so many fucking people were like talking about it. Either they loved it or hated it.
That you had to check it out. You had to just see it.
And it's there.
Absolutely.
It's right in your home. And now from the TV show and the computer, it's your smart TV. It's your phone.
It picks stuff for you. It's like, I know you'll like this movie, Jess. Yeah. Feeling down? Yeah. I've got something for you.
Sometimes I'm like, what do you think of me?
Yeah.
What's going on over there?
It knows you too well. Sometimes.
It knows me better than me.
Sometimes it knows what you watch.
When did you fall in love with the character of Maria? Because at first you're apprehensive because of the, what
there was no character Maria. It was just a last minute thing that they were going to add to the Latina crew. There was no like storyline for her.
Okay.
What we knew was that her name was Maria. Right. She was pregnant.
Okay. We
didn't even know where she was from. At one point, actually, Genji said, "Where's Maria from? Jess, where are you from?" I'm like, "My parents are from the Dominican Republic." She goes, "Sounds good." Writes down Dominican Republic. That's pretty much the characters developed as the storylines developed, because remember, the main focus was on Piper and Alex, and now we're fleshing out all these other characters. She described it as her Trojan horse. She wanted to tell these real stories that were very important, that get overlooked and ignored, people that get ignored, people that are not thought of.
Yeah.
When's the last time you thought about having a baby in jail, what that means? That's not something that
Never.
I ever never thought about.
Yeah.
It happens every day.
And it's compelling. Anything to do with jail or prison, that's why a lot of those shows do very well. It's just such a extreme situation to be in. So those storylines could be anything.
It could be anything.
That people, it's almost like being on a roller coaster, or like it's this world that most of us never want to be in.
Absolutely.
That's why it's so compelling. You're like watching all these stories, and it's not like Oz. It's like drama, but it's funny. It's
it's
like
also
life.
Women.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Of course.
So that's another entirely different aspect when you see how many of them are in there for covering up for someone else or defending themselves, which is many of the stories, you know.
Endless characters.
Characters.
All female cast. Which
pretty
is a
much.
whole other thing.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
What a story.
Yeah.
What a trip.
It's ending. That's a whole nother trip.
One more, isn't the 7th season, right?
7th season. We are currently, this Friday, we begin shooting episode 13 of season 7.
Okay,
oh, wow.
So not saying that anyone's ever ready, but 7 seasons is a pretty good run for any show.
It's phenomenal. Yeah. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, of course.
Beyond lucky, beyond blessed. All the hashtag you want to use, hashtag blessed, hashtag cool.
Wait, let me write these down.
Hashtag blessed.
Hashtag blessed.
That is phenomenal for any show to go that long, especially a show that people completely, wrote off before they watched one episode. Yeah. A bunch of ladies in jail. And we're not being violent. We're not doing Oz. We're not doing sensationalist stuff.
Right.
We're being pretty true to heart to a lot of stories.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Did we win?
No.
Hold on. Maybe that's my hubby. My hubby. He's like, are you okay? Still here, honey. You'll go ahead. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
That's cool.
He's not feeling well.
It's all good. Tell him we said hi.
Yes.
I will.
And it's interesting too, because you just said it there when you said, who thinks about someone being born in jail? I'm like thinking about it. The only time I ever thought about it was Tupac was born in jail, and it was used as street cred for him. It wasn't anything I ever felt like empathy for.
Touching or like how sad. No, it's like, I was born in jail. There's a tough guy.
His mom, Afeni Shakur, and what's interesting, a lot of the things that come up on this podcast, and one of the reasons why we do it is because we always say nobody's one thing. Mm-hmm. And even we've had controversial people, and we had Michael Alec who killed someone.
I know.
You had Noah Levine, who his whole thing. And the thing is that when you get to talk to people, you find out they're more than one thing. What you did with Maria is, as the seasons go on, and she's so tough, but then you see this mom and a soft side. And when people think of a woman in jail, pregnant in jail, and a baby being born in jail, there's now a little story attached to it that brings more compassion.
The layers under, because she wasn't born a criminal. You know, something happened that put her in that situation. But I would say when you said when did you fall in love with Maria, I had a similar story, thinking about when do you ever think about someone in jail. It was at the Afropunk Fest, and I think it was 2014. 2014, and it was kind of overwhelming to be out because a lot of people were recognizing me for the first time, because the show came out the first year was 2013, so that was still kind of like people recognize you. So maybe it was 13, 14. So I remember just feeling overwhelmed, and this girl screaming, Maria, 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 at the top of her lungs, runs towards me, jumps on me, and puts her arms around me. And I was like, oh my God, I'm being attacked. Fan overkill, and I have no security. I'm by myself. And she just breaks down crying, and she goes, I'm that baby. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Wow.
She goes, I was born in jail, and I didn't get to see my mother. And, I went through the system, but to see what my mother might have gone through gave me a whole new appreciation for what happened. But I just want you to know that I'm that baby, and thank you for telling our story.
Wow.
That's
heavy.
Yeah, pretty heavy.
Heavy.
Then the Bad Brains played.
As long as you didn't call security.
That sounds like a good day.
Yeah. Or maybe Body Count played. But yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, that was pretty heavy, and that was the moment that I knew that no matter what my role was going to be in this show, even if it's a smaller role, larger role, that we're doing good work through this show, and we are able to help women in prison. We were able to visit them and help with charity events, and not just charity events involving prison. Now we have some notoriety, so to speak. So now we can use this platform to help raise awareness for any of our causes, our belief systems that we ascribe to, and charity events that happen. If there's some kind of something that needs attention, and all of that is an insane blessing. #blessed. An insane blessing that you've done this thing, and you think the work is the thing, but the work is only a piece of this giant, larger picture of now your responsibility on this planet.
Wow.
Yeah, it's fine. Like you said, you attach a story to all these characters, and it helps, like that story, just like humanize and just think of people as people that are in there that have these stories. And man, that's awesome. That was a really, really good story. I didn't know where that story was going, but it ended up pretty good.
Yeah, it was pretty good. That was definitely a life-changing moment for sure.
All right, let's take a quick break.
Commercial break.
All right. So speaking of helping people,
yes,
you're doing a workshop up at Chapel of Sacred Mirrors, which is Alex Gray's place.
Yes.
February 9th?
February 9th, yes.
Tell us about that.
All right, I have this. Let me see. I have the schedule here.
Okay. Have you ever been up there?
I have. I recently,
awesome.
I had been in the one, a Cosm here that was in Manhattan, and then they moved upstate to kind of Wappinger, I believe.
Yeah, I've been to that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they created kind of, I don't want to say a compound, but they have a room, like an open room where they have guests that come teach, and they have art classes and yoga classes, music classes, full moon parties, raves. Concerts. But the other thing that they're building is the Pantheon, which to house all of Alex's work, which is, if you've ever seen, well, you've seen it, it's gigantic, it's monumental.
Everything's huge.
It's huge. Like a painting that I had loved for all my life, you know, basically I realized was 10 feet tall.
Yeah.
The last time I went was overwhelming.
Yeah.
But they're building a museum to house those creations, as well as showcase local artists and be a museum and art space and spiritual space. They are considered a church.
Yeah. There's an actual, aren't they building like an actual church?
Yeah, it's the Pantheon. Yeah. It's sick. I mean, it's nothing that I can describe because right now it's just a blacked out box.
I saw some construction.
The outside is going to be insane. I mean, these giant figureheads, if you know his heads that kind of share an eye, you know, things like that. It's going to be all around it, and I don't want to describe it because it's not my project. So the plans for it, their plans for it are just gigantic, and it's a beautiful, beautiful space with a good intent. So I feel very happy that I'll be doing a workshop there with Chris Grosso, who is also a hardcore kid. Chris Grosso.
It's one of those things where when someone's like, well, I want to have an art space and I want to have this and I want to have like a church, and you're like, that's never going to happen. And
they have it.
They have it.
And it's a bed and breakfast, and it's a library.
You can rent rooms there.
And you can rent rooms. They can marry you in the morning if you really like each other after the party.
There's trails with artwork.
That is some kind of night.
There's trails with artwork. There's it's just a gathering space, and you have people that just live and work there, volunteer there. You have people that just come after work to hang out. You have people that are, I don't know.
Just like, you go there and you're like, how come I'm not on mushrooms right now? Like, this would be the perfect time. But they have, you can have lunch there. They have food,
have lunch
coffee,
there, dinner there, coffee, hang out. We got to meet Alex and Allison. We got the whole full tour of everything. Hung out with them. Saw some of their new art that's coming out. And this is kind of just like a manifest thing. It's like, I want to teach here someday. She goes, you will. And that was her answer. And then Chris approached me later, a few weeks later, about, hey, it'd be cool. I heard you just went to Cosm. You want to do a workshop with me? And there you have it. And so it began. So we'll be doing a workshop that's going to be pretty much the whole day, starting around 1, and focusing on kind of using your art to deal with adversity, going through hard times, how to accept yourself. Chris comes from more of recovery angle. His art is very much about, self-healing. His meditation styles, he borrows from a lot of different styles. I'm very much one style. I'm a Tibetan Buddhist in the Gelugpa tradition. So I'll be using meditations from my tradition for those same things, for healing, for inspiration, for artists, for developing compassion, loving kindness, insight. There's a whole bunch of things. I don't want to give it all away, but there's going to be a lot of stuff. And then at one point towards the end, we'll be doing a music meditation. So we'll be playing together, playing something that we've never rehearsed together as part of a meditation, like exactly what meditation is, go with the flow,
right,
so to speak. So we'll be just doing that and showing how music is meditation. There's famous Mahasiddhi who reached higher levels of consciousness by only playing music and not meditating, so to speak, or studying, so to speak, in the traditional sense, but using his playing as his meditation, and attained siddhis and attained high levels of consciousness and concentration and enlightenment, so to speak. So So
is that like a concentration on the sound instead of a concentration on the breath, more or less?
Yeah, it's a concentration on the sound, a concentration in the moment, a concentration of letting go. Let's say someone, probably me, will hit a wrong note. Mm-hmm. What do? Do you focus on it? Do you let it mess up your mind? Do you lose the next 3 notes worried about that note, so to speak? So it's a mind training of a kind of mindfulness training.
And how did you first discover Tibetan Buddhism?
That's a long story. I always grew up in a spiritual house, raised Christian, but somewhere around 12, 13, things were not adding up to me. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, so somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. Still elementary school. Certain things were not adding up for me, even though I was in a very loving Christian home. I got a lot of times, because God says so was the answer or something like that. And that wasn't really, flying for me. And I didn't abandon all my beliefs, so to speak, but I needed kind of more. And being the crazy metal kid I was, opposite of God, you go like dark side. And I'm like, oh, this is garbage. This is garbage too. This is just more lies, more jokes. There's no answer here. It's just to make you feel good kind of thing. So I thought about, at that point I was meditating a lot and thinking about my grandmother was still alive and thinking about, her remedies and things like that, that even though we were raised Latin, we're very in touch with our Native American, roots, our heritage there, and began studying that and practicing that, developing that kind of cultivation. But it was only for me, it was just some. It was still peace. I was like getting in the right direction, and I just felt kind of lost for a while, that I felt like there was something more that I wasn't getting there. Like, this is some of it, but not all of it. This is some of it, but not all of it. And finally, my mom had a book on the shelf. It said, Religions of the World. I'm like, hey, let's give this a go. First one was, animism, so that's Native American religion. I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. Then you get into like Judaism and studying Kabbalah and angels and angelic script and things like that, the secret teachings. And that was making more sense to me, but still something was not quite clicking, but some of it was, but not all of it. Then you get into the Hindu, Krishna, and then I was exposed to that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. In the hardcore scene, there was a lot of Krishna consciousness. Krishna core was around, so I wasn't totally unfamiliar with it. The readings that were kind of making sense to me, but then I went to a place or two, and it wasn't for me. Mm-hmm. Not saying that it wasn't wrong, or that it was wrong, just saying that it didn't connect the way I wanted to connect, or I didn't feel it. And then I had a chapter called, Tao Te Ching, Taoism. Yeah. And then that was the first time I really felt a great connect. Mm-hmm. It was all logic, cause and effect, and I'm a very, math person. Mm-hmm. Logic, cause, effect, done. How to train your morality. Don't worry about the world outside. Don't worry about other people. Focus on you, train yourself, and your world will change. And that completely made sense to me. Right. The more you meditate, the way you act, the softest substance in the world has the ability to carve through the hardest. It may take time and patience, but it can, things like that, making you think in a different way and teaching you kind of to be in the middle of that. So that was kind of, and I had copies and copies of it on me. I had different translations. I had, this version, this translation, this version, whatever. I had like 4 on me all the time. And then I remember in school we had to read this book called Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. So my teacher had us do an essay test on it, on the book, and I compared the entire book to the Tao Te Ching. Sorry, I got like my eyes like, it's been bugging me all day.
Do you wear contacts?
No. Oh. I don't think so.
Okay. I do, sorry.
So we had to read this book, Siddhartha. And I compared the entire book to Tao Te Ching. I mean, like, I didn't even read the book for the value of the book story. I just read the book and compared the whole thing to the Tao Te Ching, like line by line, how this is the middle way, how, he was showing patience, how he was showing this force, how he was showing that force. And my teacher said, well, you're really good at this. You should check out Buddhism. I'm like, Buddhism's not for me. I'm a Taoist. You know, I'm like, please. And he's like, no, I think you would really check it out. Like, check that out and read the book again, you know. I was like, all right, whatever. And I, you know, go to the religions of the world, take it back off the shelf, dust it off, because I was, you know, good at that point. And open it up, and I see this skinny, you know, the emaciated Buddha. I'm like, oh, this is not cute. I don't want to do that. I don't want to suffer like that.
Right.
And I start flipping through it. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. And then that makes sense. And this also makes sense. And wait, that too makes sense. And then I read the paragraph, the chain of causation, dependent origination, how suffering is created. And I wept. I actually cried. Because for the first time, there was an answer to everything on a page in front of me. And it was there. And it made total sense. And it wasn't something outside of you. It wasn't something mystical. It wasn't something magical. It wasn't something that you had to seek from someone else. It was just the facts.
Right.
Pure logic. And it was beautiful. And from that point on, I started looking for a teacher.
Yeah. Wow. And all of those, like the picture of the emaciated Buddha is before he found the middle way. And a lot of the stuff too, like I remember first discovering it, I liked the trappings of it, the saffron robes. It was very cool looking, but nothing connected with me until I started reading that stuff, because now it's a science of mind. You're understanding.
It's psychology.
Attachment and why you do what you do. You even said before when you were talking about the role that you almost got before Orange is the New Black, and you learned this thing about should be paying attention to the process, got like you were
I was grasping
attached to the outcome.
To an outcome that didn't even exist.
Right.
And I created my own suffering, as opposed to going in there being happy, reading for these people that are wonderful, that wrote this thing, and having a chance to do it, even if it's for 5 minutes.
Right.
I was so attached on the way I wanted an outcome to be that I didn't appreciate what I ruined everything before that.
Right. So. It's that being in the moment thing, which is not easy. But there's a science to it. Meditation helps with that. And then there's also, like, even when you don't do it and you realize you're being a jerk, or you're too attached to the outcome, you realize you're being a jerk, and you're too attached to the outcome, and you see the space between. The
change, absolutely. I can definitely say that all of this has changed me a lot. Sometimes it's our little kind of self-cherishing mind gets frightened when you say, you know, I don't really get mad anymore. I'm not depressed anymore. I don't get angry anymore. I almost don't feel anything. And that sounds really bad. It's not not feel like you're on some kind of antipsychotic drug. No.
Yeah.
It's I don't feel like I'm not ruled by my emotions. I'm actually quite neutral to nice, like feeling 90% of the time, which is a really great place to be. And I remember, you know, being younger, looking back at those teenage years and everything was so now or never. Depression was these big swings of, you know, of just can't get out of bed, or just sadness, not wanting to go on anymore, not seeing a hopeful future,
right,
or you know, letting any little thing completely derail you in a day. If somebody doesn't like your shirt, like it's over for you today. Like every little thing was a possible explosion of mind, and now it's like,
it just is what it is. I mean, I stubbed my toe. Now I'm going to tell everyone. Now I'm going to bring it to the office. Now I'm going to, you know, and
you brought it with you, and it becomes a giant event.
With learning through Buddhism, and more of what I learned later was Zen. I was more attracted to than Tibetan Buddhism, and that whole thing after a while just becomes funny when you catch yourself in the middle of telling a story, like, and this jerk and that fucking guy, and then you're like in the middle of it, you realize what you're doing, and then it's just like you're not even beating yourself up. You're like, it's just funny.
Laughing.
I'm like being
I've gotten that way with people that are, I mean, I know to not get too like esoteric, but when others are trying to harm me, which is really just projections of my mind, right? Because now my mind sees what their actions differently, and I've actually laughed at someone who was trying to like hurt me, not physically hurt me, but hurt me with like a showing off something moment. And that was one of the funniest things I had ever seen. Like, it was genuinely, I laughed out loud, like to the point of tears, because I saw the whole thing completely differently now. Whereas if I would have gotten this text message, this picture message or whatever 5 years earlier, 10 years earlier, maybe I would have been in jail. Maybe I would have gone berserk. Maybe I would have gone out and like broken something. Maybe I would have just gone drinking, or maybe it would have broken me and I would have been in bed for 3 days, you know, crying or something. Now it just was pure joy. It was like, ha! That's so stupid.
I might be Buddhist.
Yeah.
You are. He has like a natural equanimity.
You're natural.
Yeah. Like he doesn't.
That's great.
Things we were actually talking about this.
We were
on the
having
way
this discussion on the way in. How my girlfriend is.
Yeah, I don't want to name names.
I'll edit that part out.
Yeah,
my girlfriend.
I'll edit that out.
We were just talking about this type of thing. People we know that get upset about things and we don't, and then just having this type of conversation where he has like a natural born, like you could be like if something really bad happens, he's like, you win some, you lose some. Something really great happens, and he's still like,
I don't emote.
Yeah,
much.
he doesn't go.
It doesn't derail you. It doesn't ruin your whole day. It might ruin a minute or something. It doesn't affect you.
Or even the good things. He's
even
not
the
like,
good things.
This is it.
Yeah.
This is the
But
best
the
thing.
thing is
great.
that we're all built. We're raised differently, and we're all built differently. We all have different chemical compounds in our brains that help us see things a certain way biologically. Then there's also our psychologicals are all different, depending on your own personal experience. And then if you really want to go into, then you have karma, and your karma dictates also the way you perceive things. So you have a natural, more even keeled karma than other people that might be born, let's say, manic depressive or bipolar, or someone that is autistic, or someone that is raised in a ghetto or born in jail. You have a completely different starting point than that person. So that's going to dictate the way we react to everything.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why.
He saved all the money on books.
That's good.
I went from jail to rehabs to fucking heroin. Like maybe going through hell.
But maybe because you went through hell.
Yeah, because I got clean at 20.
Wow.
So I'm 40. Yeah, 20 years.
Wow. Okay. So you went through it.
Maybe. Yeah. So maybe I just because like to me everything. And not to sound so obnoxious, because I know it could sound obnoxious, but I'm just like, well, I mean, did you die? That's how I look at it.
That's what my teacher used to say. He's like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Is you die, then you start over. No big deal. Then you get a better one next time. So that's like the worst thing that can happen is you're going to die.
Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah. What's the worst thing that can happen? You die. And then what? And then
clean slate,
Yeah, clean slate. As he would say, upgrade. Time for an upgrade.
No, that's a great movie.
Yeah.
You want to talk that band real quick?
Yeah, let's talk about your music.
We'll close it out with the band.
Yeah, sure.
If you could just let us know about Alekeen's Gun.
Alekeen's Gun. We're currently working on some new material now. It's been kind of weird because my job has kind of been all-encompassing and everyone else has been pursuing their other things. But we have an album, but it needs some words. That's where we're at now.
It sounds like that's your job.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my job. That's my job. So we have the songs already. The lyrics are coming, and then hopefully before the end of the year we'll be done with this and then get to play out again. Yay!
When was the last time you guys played out?
We haven't played out in a year. I think it's been a year. Last November 17, so too long. But it's one of those things, like one of those situations that I don't feel comfortable just jumping back. Hey guys, you want to play a show next week? Even though we haven't played out in a while, because it's something that's very personal. Right. Very, very personal to me. The lyrics are all Tibetan Buddhist based for the most part, or personal experience. So like we have things like Abhidhamma Kosha or Wheel of Knives, Lojong Sikyema, it's mind training. So all those lyrics are from my personal studies, my meditations, and my life. So I don't ever want to just like take that lightly. I would never just like throw together like some words and do it. It's very personal to me. So
you have two EPs up, right?
Yeah, we have 2 EPs out. Yep.
Just out of curiosity, I mean, because it's heavy, super heavy for anyone listening, that's not familiar with you. The influences, What are the influences? Because it's super heavy, and the vocals you do are like very, like some heavy ass vocals.
They're heavier now, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we put that out in 14 or 15. I mean, so things have changed. 15 maybe.
Yeah.
Things have changed, you know, mentally, and your vocal style my vocal style has changed somewhat.
What was like your vocal influences for this stuff? Because I mean, I hear almost like At the Gates type.
That's very much it.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
Very much At the Gates. A lot of At the Gates. A lot of Meshuggah. Some parts in the new stuff. We have let's see, Carcass.
Okay.
Immolation. Slayer. A lot of black metal bands for me.
Yeah.
A lot of Marduk and
crazy. That's
Behemoth.
That's stuff.
Yeah.
Behemoth for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Those are definitely in there.
Okay.
Leo and Jeff wrote the majority of the first EP, and then Jeff and I wrote the majority of all of the second EP. And I play guitars on that as well.
Okay, but when you guys play live, you play bass?
No, when we play live, I just sing.
Just sing.
I thought I was going to be the bass player until I realized that I get too emotional with this band, so I can't just pull back, and I started kicking mic stands and stuff, and I would either lose the theatrics of the vocals, or I would lose the bass, one or the other. So we have a bass player for that. Okay. So that when I do that, I can just focus on the crusher comes the character comes out.
The crusher.
I never remember our shows.
So the new record should be, I mean, maybe by like the end of the year.
Yeah, I'm hoping for that. I'm assuming that at this point, since I'll be unemployed soon.
Yeah, that's right. I mean,
right.
Since I'll be out of jail soon, I won't actually be out of jail, but as far as I know, I still have one episode left.
Okay.
One episode left. I mean,
spoiler alert.
Has it been?
No spoiler.
Yeah, it's been like a crazy ride. Like, I mean,
it's such a crazy ride, but we're going out the right way.
Yeah.
In a blaze of no blazing, no blazing,
no Thelma and Louise ending.
No bombs.
But you go out on top.
We're going out. I think we're going out exactly the right way.
Yeah.
We're giving our girls some great stories, some great endings. I think everyone will be satisfied and happy.
Yeah.
Some of the endings will hurt a lot. There's going to be a lot of tears, especially the last like 4 episodes. Basically, we've been just crying nonstop for the last month or so. Both personally and professionally, like in front of the camera and behind the camera. So a lot of tears in front of the camera as well as behind the camera, but well-earned tears, well-deserved tears, and meaningful from the bottom of our heart tears for these stories, where they're going, where we've taken them, and for everything we've done before, and for our audience. We really, 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 really hope that everyone enjoys it and says goodbye to our girls with us.
Yeah, and those shows live on. They'll be there forever. They'll sit there those 7 seasons, and that's huge.
Classic history and TV.
Absolutely, it's huge. And I was going to go work for Microsoft.
Oh, please. And eventually. Maybe the movie comes along a year or 2 after the show ends.
I don't know if that's something we want.
I'm just saying. I might write it myself.
After 7 seasons.
After 7 seasons.
Are you ready to move on?
We are all ready to move on.
This is the right time.
And it's not because we don't appreciate this. Yeah. It's not because we don't love it. It's just, it's exhausting. It's draining. And we're ready to move on because we want to leave these characters in these specific places. Mm-hmm. And we want to go before it becomes a soap opera, or before it becomes a joke, before it loses its power. It's still a very powerful show. And sometimes, that's a fatal flaw, is like the show goes one too many for whatever number that is, for whatever show that is.
Scrubs.
But you know what I mean? We want to do these characters justice. So putting this in this perfect spot, ending it this way, is just, it's the right thing to do. It's like, let them rest.
Yeah, and it's got to be awfully difficult to do that, but it makes sense.
It is. I mean, who doesn't want a steady job on the best show on earth for the rest of your life?
Things go on and on and on, but
Yeah.
I think next chapter.
Yeah, we could make this show go on and on and on. There's always going to be more people in jail. Right. There's always going to be another day.
Right.
You know, but no, this is where we need to leave them there. Like, we have to leave them, especially in these specific places where you'll see. And some of them, like I said, some of the places will not be nice or pretty, but it's good.
I need a good cry.
Yeah, I need a good cry.
I'm too even keel, you know.
That's why my eye hurt. It's just dust coming out of here at this point.
Before we do the last question, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, can you give me 3 albums that changed your life?
King Diamond, Conspiracy, absolutely. 3 albums, damn it. Meshuggah, Destroy, Erase, Improve.
Okay.
And Mendelssohn's Concerto in E minor.
Okay.
Number 60.
All right.
It's a range.
Yeah, there you go.
That is a range. I just like loving.
And you didn't do the thing that everybody does.
It's just so hard.
It's because it's hard. Yeah.
But it's too hard.
You were like.
Because then I was like, okay, well, Sting, Soul Cages, but do I still listen to it? Not really. Do I still listen to Conspiracy all the time? Destroy, Erase, Proof? Yes. Because that changed the way I thought about math and musicality.
Yeah, their musicality is insane.
Yeah.
Like, does your husband just like do like does
all
he
day long?
All day long.
Actually, he does. He does do that all day.
How'd you guys meet, by the way?
We met. Funny enough, the first time we met was at Coney Island High. The first time they ever played in New York in 1998.
Wow.
And I was too scared to say hi because this is like they're from another country. They were giants. I was little, like, right. I was like, I love your music, bye, and I ran away. So that's like kind of the first time we met. But then we were reintroduced when our friends in Intronaut opened for them at Roseland Ballroom in 2013, February 15th, 2013.
My birthday.
Really? That's your birthday?
February 15th.
Wow, you got all that candy for your birthday?
Yeah. Sure did.
Yeah, so we actually, and then we hit it off as friends, very, respectfully, nicely. We just like clicked. We couldn't stop talking. We just talked.
Was he living back in Sweden?
He was in Sweden. They were on tour. He was in something. I was in something. But it was just like a connect, mind meld connect, spirit connect. I don't know. Very respectful, but really deep conversation. And then we saw each other again like a year later, and he remembered the things that I told him from a year ago. And we exchanged emails and kind of, like nice banter and little flirting. But it's like, come on, he lives in Sweden. Yeah. I live here. It's never going to work out.
It's a hike.
And,
that Uber would be expensive.
Yeah, and then they're supposed to hang out in New York, and our phones died, and like that didn't work out. Oh well. And then we finally see each other, like more emails happen, more phone calls. But we're just so like-minded and very a similar type person, and we were kind of in the same place at the same time, mentally and emotionally. But then I was at the point though. Where I was done. Like, I was going to do my show, and I was going to be a nun on the weekends, and I was done, because maybe you don't get love and a #1 show in the world and an awesome band and awesome friends and awesome family and live in New York. Like, maybe I got like an embarrassment of riches here. Maybe I don't have a partner. Maybe that's okay. And I was like totally good with that. It's like, so that's good. No man distraction in my life. I can go on retreats on the weekend. Life is beautiful. Perfect. But he had a different idea. And he expressed his interest at NAMM. And it's our 4-year NAMMiversary.
Bringing it back. Now we could end perfectly right here. Back to NAMM.
It's our 4-year NAMMiversary. And
you're good.
He made a grand gesture. And he said, and he's told me several times, I'm so proud of who you are, the things you've accomplished, that I love the way you think. It was nothing like, it was things that you would want your husband or wife or mother or family, someone close in your heart, to say to you. And he was just said all those things. And I said, so what are you going to do? You're pouring it on thick. You want to just hook up or something, like you don't have to do all that. And he's like, no, I think we belong together. Amazing. And I'll show it you. And I'm like, are you going to fly to New York to take me out to dinner? He said, yeah, just tell me when.
Wow.
And the rest is history.
Awesome.
That's it.
Wow. Amazing.
Sounds like a sweetheart.
Yeah. He is. He's wonderful.
What
very,
a life.
very lucky.
What a life Jessica's got going on. Very much.
It's namtastic.
It's namtastic.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so the last question? Go ahead.
Yeah.
All right, so the name of the podcast is called If I Ruled the World. Yes. So we ask every guest that question. So Jessica Pimentel, if you ruled the world, what would that look like?
Wow, that is such a scary question because it's just immense in its weight and gravity.
It's a Rorschach test.
Yeah, it's like I would not want to rule the world per se. Mm-hmm. What I would hope is that all beings treat each other with loving kindness and equanimity, that we are no longer separated by borders or religion or color, or thinking that your child is more important than my child, or thinking that your culture is superior to mine, or thinking that your pain is different than my pain. We're all in pain, we're all sick, we're all dying, and we're all on this spinning blue mass in space. And we quite often forget that we're all the same, and we're all connected. All the actions that we do connect and affect other people. So I guess if I ruled the world, we would all have to treat each other as if we are all related all the time.
I love it.
That's a world I live in.
Yeah, it's mad cousins.
Mad cousins, man.
It's a lot of cousins. It's a lot of Christmas gifts, but
that is true. We might have to do a Secret Santa.
One united world, one world united. That's all.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. I had a blast. Thanks for inviting me out.
Long time coming.
Yeah, long time coming.
Yeah, I know. That's why I couldn't say no anymore.
Thank you, Nick.
I knew it was time. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Nick. All right.
Bye. Good night.
If I ruled the world, I love 'em, baby.